You've heard it before. The killer who thinks they're untouchable, that they can end anyone's life with just a glance, a threat, a sharp blade. But what happens when they choose the wrong person? When they push someone to the limit, only to find out that they're not just up against their next victim, they're up against someone who will turn the tables in ways they never expected? This is the chilling story of a ruthless killer who thought he was playing a game, but little did he know, he'd picked the wrong girl to target. He thought he could take her down without a second thought, but Emma had been preparing for this moment her entire life. What he didn't realize was that this wasn't just about survival, this was about revenge. Prepare yourself for a story of power, control, and a woman who wasn't afraid to show the world just how far she was willing to go to get justice. It was an ordinary day, one of those days where everything seems calm on the surface, but beneath it all, something far darker is brewing. Emma, a woman of average height, average build, and average looks, stepped out of her apartment as she did every day. She had no idea that today wouldn't be like the rest. She had no idea that today, her life would change forever. She was, for the most part, like everyone else. She worked a 9-to-5 job in a small office downtown, dealing with clients, managing paperwork, and living a life most would consider unremarkable. But Emma had learned early on that you couldn't always judge a book by its cover. The things people knew about her, those were the things that kept her safe, kept her unnoticed. She blended in. No one suspected her of being anything more than just a regular woman. That was her advantage. Emma's day started like any other. She walked through the busy streets of the city, oblivious to the dark eyes watching her from the shadows. Across the street, a man leaned against a lamppost, his face hidden in the shadows, his eyes trained on her every move. Jack Miller was a predator, a killer without remorse or hesitation. He had been watching Emma for days, following her every step, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But Emma, she wasn't just any woman. She had lived through things most people wouldn't understand. She knew the world was dangerous. She knew people like Jack existed. And she knew that when it came to protecting yourself, you didn't just rely on the police, or hope for the best. No, you had to be prepared for whatever came your way. Jack had no idea who he was dealing with. The air was thick with tension as Emma walked toward her apartment building, unaware that Jack was following her. He kept his distance, careful not to alert her, knowing she wouldn't give him the opportunity to strike if she saw him coming. Jack had taken down countless people before. They had all been easy targets, people who were afraid, people who didn't know how to fight back. But Emma? She wasn't like them. She wasn't afraid. She was different. As she rounded the corner, Jack saw his chance. He moved quickly, silently, and before Emma could react, he grabbed her from behind, covering her mouth with a gloved hand to stifle any scream that might escape. His voice was low, cold, as he whispered in her ear. "Don't scream. Don't make a sound. Just do what I say, and you'll be fine." Emma didn't freeze. She didn't panic. Instead, she did something Jack didn't expect. She calmly reached into her purse. Jack thought she was reaching for her phone, probably to try and alert someone. But he was wrong. Emma pulled out a small, sleek stun gun, pressing it hard against his side. The electricity surged through his body before he could even process what was happening. Jack's body stiffened, and for a moment, he lost control of his limbs. Jack's grip loosened, but Emma didn't give him time to recover. She wasn't waiting around for him to regain control. She wasn't going to give him that chance. With a quick twist, she broke free from his grasp and delivered a solid kick to his chest, sending him stumbling backward. Jack had never been the one to lose control of a situation, but in that moment, everything changed. Emma wasn't scared. She didn't cry for help. She simply turned and began running, not away from him, but toward her own plan. She knew exactly where to go, how to fight back, and what she needed to do. Emma was no stranger to danger, but she was a master of strategy. Jack scrambled to his feet, cursing under his breath. He couldn't believe it. A woman, just a woman, had turned the tables on him. She wasn't running away. She wasn't helpless. Instead, Emma was ready for round 2. She had been preparing for a moment like this for years, training, learning how to survive, how to defend herself, how to hurt someone and make sure they didn't get up again. She knew how to fight. She knew how to make sure she wasn't just the victim. She was the one in control. As Jack regained his footing, Emma wasn't far behind. She turned and faced him, eyes cold and calculated. She didn't need to speak. She didn't need to make threats. Jack saw the determination in her eyes, and it hit him harder than any blow she could have delivered. She was quick, faster than he expected. Jack lunged at her, his hands reaching for her throat, but Emma ducked beneath his grasp, using his own momentum against him. She swept his legs out from under him, and he fell hard to the pavement. Now, it was her turn. She pulled out a small knife, nothing fancy, but it was enough. With a swift motion, she moved toward him, knowing that every second counted. Jack, on the ground, still in shock from how quickly she'd turned the tables, couldn't get up fast enough. "You thought you could just take me down?" Emma's voice was steady, almost bored. "You thought I was just another target. You couldn't have been more wrong." What Jack didn't know was that Emma had been preparing for this very moment her whole life. She wasn't just trained in self-defense. She had studied him. She knew who he was. She knew how he operated. Emma had been in the shadows for weeks, watching him, learning his habits. She had gathered information, had tracked his movements, and now she was going to make him pay. Jack tried to fight back, but it was too late. Every move he made was anticipated. Emma had already set the trap. He had walked right into it without even realizing it. He struggled, but the knife was already at his throat. By the time the police arrived, Jack Miller was barely conscious. His body was covered in bruises, his pride shattered. He had thought he was the one in control, the one who made the rules, who decided who lived and who died. But Emma had turned the tables. She had become the predator, and Jack was left to suffer. When the police questioned him, he couldn't explain how a simple woman had brought him to his knees. All he could do was mutter about a girl who wasn't afraid. A girl who had broken him. Emma disappeared that night, just as quietly as she had appeared. No one knows where she went. Some say she vanished to start a new life. Others say she's still out there, waiting for anyone else who might think they can play the same game. One thing is certain, though. The world learned an important lesson that night: never underestimate the quiet ones. Because when you mess with the wrong girl, you don't just lose control, you lose everything. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, the most dangerous people are often the ones you least expect.